Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Courageous Journey. I'm your host, Paula Walters. As a survivor paramedic educator and advocate, I've learned that when we truly understand how trauma impacts the brain, body, and behavior, people begin to make a lot more sense. Each week, we'll have honest conversations about trauma, healing, resilience, and hope. A quick note before we begin. Some episodes discuss domestic violence, child abuse, sexual assault, brain injury, mental health, and other difficult topics. Please listen at your own pace. Now, let's begin today's courageous conversation. This is the beginning of the restart of season 2. I have not recorded an episode or a podcast since April. It has been a difficult few months, and God has been working on me a lot. In like life didn't interrupt my mission. It was just preparing for me. And in like the last few months have changed me. So for people that don't know my story, I have a childhood ACE score of 9. I've lived through domestic violence and a lot of trauma. And there are seasons that are so hard. And one of the seasons that I'm working through right now is that my mom is in a memory care unit for advanced dementia. And she's recently broken her arm. And it has made things difficult because I'm trying to be there every day, every other day, and just make sure that she's taken care of. And I'm also balancing my full-time job as a paramedic. And in this vision that I have of where I want this to go, I've only been for the last several years, this has been like a hobby. It's been something that I do on the side. I didn't feel that I had enough, what I would say, I would actually classify it as imposter syndrome, that I didn't feel like I belonged on these big national stages and all this stuff. So it was just something that I was doing on the side when I was invited to do so. A lot of things have changed. I was invited to join this this research project, and I'm sitting in these spaces with some amazing professionals from across the country. And I realized that like I belong here. Like I might not have the degrees that everybody has, but like I have the lived experience, and not just the lived experience. Like I've been healing and I've educated myself through it. And so I think that in that space, I also decided to get brave enough to apply for the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, the Hotline Conference, in which I will be speaking on their stage in August. So I've been preparing myself for that, making my own presentation, and I'm super excited about what that's going to be happening. And so when I've been deciding that like I want to step into this full time, I started my recovery and healing from trauma journey in 2019. I have worked very hard for the last 7 years. I have gotten my lab work in good place, my neuro rehab in good place. I've worked on getting my heart rate variability, my sleep cycles, all these things, getting myself out of these places where I was living in survival mode. And that's super, super hard. And it takes a long time. And am I healed? No, I will continue to work on this for the rest of my life. However, I think that you have to have a very large toolbox to be able to step in doing this full time. You see it time and time again where these people get on social media and they become influencers, or the expectations come upon them, and then they get bullied, or they fall off into some types of addiction, or they start struggling with mental health. And I wanted to make sure that I had my feet firmly planted on the ground in my faith, having almost everything that I could possibly do before I stepped into um, kind of making this what I want to do full time. Like, and that has been hard. And so I've been working on the last few months trying to make this decision of, do I want to stay working in EMS, or did I want to try to get out? So I started working at for people that don't know, I absolutely love gardening, and I have 33 chickens, and I have 6 doodles, and like I try very hard to bake my own stuff. I am a little kind of micro homesteader, and I firmly believe in holistic health. And so I have been kind of building this thing where um, I've just been working on, like, okay, I want to get a part-time job because it's what I want to do. So, there's a lot of like home and farm type of things, jobs. So I went and got a job at one of those box stores that, kind of complements the homesteading lifestyle that I love. And I loved it. I love the job. Here is the problem. Um, it and actually, let me step back. I was going to leave my full-time job as EMS and work there, so that and that would be like my job that kind of funded my speaking going further as I did my full-time speaking. However, when you work for box stores and stuff like that, there isn't the flexibility that is needed. And especially that really showed up when my mom fell and broke her arm. And the one thing that I do have in EMS is the ability to take leave, the ability to get coverage and stuff like that. So I have had to make the decision to resign from the store that I loved so very much. It's because there's accountability, and I did make $10 an hour less. That was hard because that's a lot of money in today's, and homesteading ain't cheap. But I did resign from that for the fact that, like, right now, I just really need to show up for my mom. I need the flexibility to be able to kind of make my own schedule going forward so that I can prioritize this place that I want to go with my speaking in the community that I'm building. My long-term 2 to 3, maybe 4-year goal is to have the Courageous Survivor Institute. Like, I am working currently on building these groups and places where survivors can come in and we support each other. I hear time and time again as I go to trainings and I go to speakings that, like, well, where do you go to have like healthy support? Like, I feel all alone. So I'm trying to answer that, because that's what I needed to. I felt very alone. I didn't know where I could go and get healthy answers. Because a lot of people in a lot of these groups want to like trauma dump, and they're stuck in victimhood, and they don't really want to get better because they don't take advice. They keep, you can see 6 months of them talking about the same problem and there's no solution. And so I want to create this very real community of people who really want to understand what trauma does all the way down to the cellular level. So not just being trauma informed, but also being very brain aware. And that is very important to me. And so, like, it's just been complicated because as my mom in her dementia, besides breaking the arm, she's navigating back, and she's bringing up things from my childhood that I'm like, wait, I don't remember that. And so it's triggering these memories. So it's like these new little things are sneaking up that I have to work on, and I have to like address and then unpack and then kind of and heal. And that stuff will continually come out. And so that's really, really difficult. And it's also been super heartbreaking to watch the trend on social media where people are going no contact with their parent who hurt them. And again, like I had an A score of 9. My childhood, I had a lot of good, but I had, there was a lot of bad. And I think about how many people, and I see this all the time as a paramedic, kids stick their parents in nursing homes and forget about them. And I've realized this shift that as my mom starts talking about things and her rational brain isn't there as much, so she doesn't have this ability to like protect and, I don't want to say lie, but be untruthful about things from her past and things that happened. I'm learning that she was first a victim. Like she was a child and she was a child victim. And she carried a lot of things that I never knew about. And so it explains so much. And again, when you start understanding what happened to someone, it kind of makes you look at things a little bit different. So all these things have been going on. And so, God was doing something in all that moment. And um, I just like I've been trying really hard to build this life that supports healing and leaving survival mode and planning and making boundaries and setting morning routines and protecting my nervous system and choosing peace and preparing financially for this. Like when you're trying to do podcasting and like going out to the conference, like I got to pay for my hotel. I'm not getting paid for the conference. I have to pay for my flight out there, and all of that stuff is expensive, and just trying to get rid of all the unnecessary clutter, and simplifying my life so that I can do this next thing. And I'm so excited because all of that stuff matters. Like my brain likes predictability. And I like routines. I like those types of things. Healing creates safety, and trauma just likes chaos. And so I've really, really, really had to cocoon myself and pick the people, um, pick my people who would support this thing that I'm getting ready to walk into. And so I decided that with me being able to be on the National Domestic Violence Hotline Conference, that I'm I'm just really going to make that my moment of stepping forward into my presentation is called Amplifying Hope. It's about this intersection of the invisible injuries of brain injury, domestic violence, trauma, and strangulation. And so, like, why am I coming back now? In anticipation of that and launching these new groups that I'll be telling you about here in a little bit, I saw the very heartbreaking case that is coming out of Ohio, where 16 children were found in a home. And let me tell you, um, as much as the story itself broke my heart, so have the comments. We say, so many of us say that we understand trauma, we understand abuse, we understand, we're trauma informed, but do we really understand it? Because the comments tell another story. Um, Trauma rewires the brain, and children adapt. Danger becomes normal, abuse becomes familiar, fear becomes attachment, and chaos becomes home. And that's why I speak. That's why I teach. And that's why I decided that today is the day that I start my podcast back up and that I'm going to start um, what I'm getting ready to talk about here later. So it's just really going to be a exciting movement. We're going to learn together, we're going to challenge ourselves together, and we're all going to change conversations because here's what I know. My big picture is this like courageous survivor platform that brings together a safe place for survivors, a community where we come in and very trauma informed and brain aware people support each other in healing. Not counseling, not anything like that, just a community. And in the same aspect, I'm also going to be starting this not just trauma informed, but brain aware place for professionals to talk about this, to where we can go into spaces and we can talk about cases or ways to handle different things with brain injury. Because here's the thing, there's no way to prepare for that. Just like every trauma is different, so is every brain injury. What works for me does not work for the person who has the same exact hits to the head because it's going to impact them differently. And so we have to have this big toolbox. And I have worked very, very hard. There are things that work and things that don't. And I have learned how to adapt them to ways that we can carry with us so that when we are in front of that survivor, we can help them at that time. And so I'm doing that. For those, I know I am very aware that a lot of people do not want to have faith. I am starting a faith group that is on its own. It is important to me. I do believe that every survivor has their right to heal in whichever way works for them. Faith was a big part of mine. But I also know that like these groups don't need to have that piece into it. But I will make specifically one group for the people that want to bring in the faith piece to their healing. So that will be another separate place for people to gather and for us to kind of work through that. And it's just this big picture of all of these pieces coming together. And I am super excited because as we see case after case after case evolve, there is a strangulation case up in Michigan where CPS was involved, and the child was telling them that his mom was going to kill him, and he in fact did so. And so, like, we need to talk about this very dangerous intersection of when domestic violence reaches that piece where strangulation becomes involved, and now you have an anoxic or a traumatic brain injury to that survivor, on top of the fear of strangulation and what that looks like because the lethality is so much higher. And so now you want this person to navigate being able to leave and all that that entails when she now has this brain injury that is most likely undiagnosed. So she's not understanding what's going on with herself. One of my biggest struggles in my journey since 2006 has been able to have these moments of mental health, what felt very much like mental health problems, that was actually this undiagnosed brain injury. And I think that had I known way back then what I know now, it would have changed the trajectory of my life and I would be in a completely different place. Now, I believe that everything works out the way it did. Maybe I had to go through all of that so that I could be fully um, aware and enlightened to all of these gaps that people fall into when they become victims of these types of violences. And so I look forward to all of this amazing stuff to come in these groups and lives. And I've never really been in a financial, I haven't ever had all of the silos be full or filled to adequate levels to where I felt that I could take this step where, okay, now I'm ready to not to be the paramedic who does speaking and training on the side, but a professional speaker and trainer who does paramedic on the side. And I'm super excited about that because it has taken me a long time to get there. So I'm excited to see what you will see on this second episode of this week. And thank you for joining me on this courageous journey. If today's conversation has encouraged you, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with someone who might need a little hope or encouragement. Until next time, keep choosing courage, keep choosing healing, and keep choosing compassion. Remember, your past may explain your story, but it never has to define your future. I'll see you next time for another courageous conversation.